Should this superhero stay in his neighborhood? Let's find out. Hello Fanatics, I'm Phillips, and this is the Film Fanatic Review bringing you Spider-Man Far From Home, starring Tom Holland, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Zendaya. First, we'll tell you what the movie is about, and our initial thoughts. Then we'll move on to our spoiler-free likes and dislikes. We'll finish up with some spoiler-heavy thoughts on this film, and our final word. Spider-Man Far From Home follows the story of Spider-Man, who after the events of Avengers Endgame must step up to take on new threats in a world that has changed forever. Overall, I enjoyed this film. It isn't as engaging or entertaining as Homecoming by any means, but it still is a strong sequel. For what I liked about this film, let's start off with the setting. Taking Spider-Man and his adventures outside of his typical neighborhood is definitely a different pace for this character, and in turn, it gives us some outstanding visuals. This paired with the CGI, which is nothing short of spectacular, gives us some amazing action sequences throughout. And the film is filled with a lot of genuinely hilarious moments throughout that don't feel like the cliched superhero comedy we've come to expect. Beyond this, the cast gives some great performances of some hilarious and grounded characters, most notably Tom Holland, Jon Favreau, and Jake Gyllenhaal. Meanwhile, the supporting cast all hold their own as well in delivering strong transformational arcs throughout their characters as well. And the coming-of-age themes that each of these characters deal with has a similar atmosphere and tone as that of Homecoming, in which it follows the typical style of a John Hughes film. However, while there is a lot of change through all these characters in this story, there is a lot to be desired in the lead two roles. The antagonist Mysterio feels really half-baked in this film, as they could have done a lot more with his character and instead just lazily wrote him in there as this character that's really just there as a means to an end for Spider-Man. The other issue is definitely with Peter Parker, who for some reason after Endgame gets a reset button and reverts to this naive and clueless superhero that doesn't really know what he's going to do. I mean, he did that in Civil War a little bit and then in Homecoming, but you really think that he would have come into his own at the end of Homecoming going into Infinity War and Endgame. But now, yes, the loss of his mentor has caused this issue, but that doesn't mean that his character arc and everything before should be erased. And the story beats in this film are definitely formulaic and feel very reminiscent to the story beats of Iron Man 1. This is of course very obvious given the fact that they want Peter Parker to be the next Tony Stark of the MCU, and so Far From Home has to mimic that of Iron Man. This is most evidently seen through two parts. One, the mid-credits scene, which I'll explain in the spoiler section, and the use of Back in Black, which was a nod to Iron Man 1. Unfortunately, beyond the use of Back in Black, this film also really disappoints in the soundtrack department, as Homecoming really felt like this great film that had an amazing soundtrack to go along with it, as if it was its own character in this high school. But in Far From Home, there is nothing like that, and it was very disappointing in comparison to its predecessor. And the film feels very awkwardly paced, as the first half kind of drags on to show us the setting and world of a post-Endgame MCU. And because of that, it feels rushed in the latter half and doesn't know how to equally balance its emotional stakes and comedic moments. And that's where I'll end our spoiler-free thoughts on this film. If you want to hear our final word or rating of this film, pause now and click the link in the description, because now it's time for spoilers. So, the mid-credit scene, let's talk about it. Mysterio's parting gift to Spider-Man was giving a video to J. Jonah Jameson revealing his true identity. And this feels very similar to Iron Man and how at the end of his movie he revealed his secret identity to the world. Now, while Tony Stark was able to voluntarily do that, it's going to be a little bit different for Peter Parker, and I'm excited to see where they potentially go with this in the MCU. And the best scenes to me were any of the elemental fights, any MJ and Peter Parker scene, the drone sequence, and Mysterio's speech. So, with the thoughts heard, here's our final word. Spider-Man Far From Home is an engaging and hilarious European adventure that is slightly underwhelming in the shadow of its predecessor. While the story has its blips throughout, including some formulaic narrative choices, underdeveloped characters, and awkward pacing, the comedic moments, atmosphere, tone, and overall charisma of its cast make for an entertaining trip nonetheless. This film could have done a lot more with its villain and its characters, but still manages to be a fitting finale to the Infinity Saga. So I'm gonna give Spider-Man Far From Home an 8. Thanks everyone for watching our review. Are you planning on seeing Spider-Man Far From Home? Or if you've already seen it, do you have something to add? What did you think of the story? Let us know in the comments below. I'm Dylan Phillips, and this has been Film Fanatic Review.